Broadcast live.
Stogie T, South Africa's finest. Sway in the morning, honey and pain.
There ain't a French bottle, we ain't pop a fresh article, we ain't cop Benz top that we ain't dropped and dress model, we ain't knocked festival, we ain't rock, destined to beat us hot to the best of my knowledge, rest of the average, that's saying a lot, but if you taking stock and you don't save a spot for the forsaken lot, from the bacon heart, land of the slavers dark, that's your prerogative, we polar opposites, I'm from that continent of poverty and long accomplished.
My name is Zubz, the last letter. Legendary golden mic holder, ill rhyme writer, MC extraordinaire. I love hip-hop music, I create hip-hop music, I study hip-hop music. First of all, let's just start by saying there are some people who wondered why Stogie T presents verse of the month on Slick On Life. I think after that verse, nobody's wondering that. This guy has cemented his credentials as a true lyricist and an artist, MC of the highest order. If you doubted T's credentials, you don't anymore. When I critique a verse, I look at it from 3 different angles. Technique, content, significance. That's how I'm gonna look at this verse, and that's how I'm gonna present to you my argument. So what's this argument about? This argument is basically, it's simple. My view that this verse, based on those criteria, is the best African freestyle of all time. Yeah, I said it, man. The best African freestyle of all time. So let's dive right into the verse. Let's go with technique. So what do we mean by technique? We're talking punchlines, we're talking metaphors, similes, we're talking use of language, we're talking flow, we're talking presence on the beat. All these things are what make for technique. How dope are you as an MC? Are you nice with the tool? A ninja, when they slice with the sword, how they use the sword, that's the technique. What they use the sword for, all those things are irrelevant. It's, are you nice with your tool? Let's look at the example. T says,
I say South Africa, you think Trevor. I think Nelson, it's half apparent you getting mixed messages. Hey, I say Nigeria, you think fella. I think Delta, it's past and present, blurry as an impressionist way.
Now, let's break down that little chunk of verse. Rhyme structure is where you put the rhymes in the bar. Form is how the bars fit together. When you look at that little chunk that I just gave you now, we dissect the rhyme, just dissect the rhyme structure real quick. South Africa, Nigeria. You're bending the words in order for them to rhyme, and you're starting them right at the beginning of a 2-bar line. You think Trevor. You think fella. Also, rhymes symmetrically laid out 2 lines after each other. And then you close the rhyme with a typical rhyme closure, messages, impressionist. So what you have there is 3 different rhyme schemes and rhyme patterns, couplets literally coupled together in 4 different lines. Each of them reverting back to each other in a perfectly symmetrical form. Where they're not perfectly symmetrical rhymes, they're bent to become perfectly symmetrical rhymes. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the mark of a true MC. But that's not all. Wouldn't be Stogie T if that was all. Let's dig a little deeper. I say South Africa, you think Trevor. Automatically you're thinking, here's a guy who wants to send a message, right? So forget rhyme structure, you're getting a message. What's this message? Your perspective of South Africa is different to my perspective of South Africa. Cool, that's one way to look at it. Then there's a second way to look at it, an embedded message within a message. This man is not only telling you about what you think of South Africa and what he thinks of South Africa, he's giving you insight into the other side of South Africa. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later when we talk about significance. Another thing about knowing when a true artist is technically superb is when he makes it look easy. He makes it look like it's nothing, like anybody can do this. Soon as Sway says,
and when you step into the valley of the hyenas, the only rules you have, Stogie T, is you got to bring bars. Yeah.
Okay.
What does the homie do? Takes a breath, he sits back and he says, okay. That's making it look easy. That's when you know you are nice with the tool. That's when you know you are nice. Let's move on from technique, because I think that technique is the easiest thing to be able to identify his genius from. We move on to content, the second part. What do we say when we say content? When we say content, we talk about what is in a verse. What is the meat on the bones of a verse? So yeah, so your technique is dope. So your rhyme structures are impeccable. What are you saying though? Now I'm gonna go on a limb here. You're gonna have to speak to the artist and find out if this is real, but the general theme, what he's saying in content with this entire verse is simple. welcome. Welcome, here's an introduction. Top to bottom, when you listen to that verse, go listen to it again. I know you've heard it like a gazillion times. He's welcoming you into something. He's saying, hey, look over here. I'd like you to meet, he'd like you to meet T, Stogie, the artist. That's what he's talking about in this verse. But not just that. I'd like you to meet Africa, where I'm from, the continent. He's talking about introducing you, the listener, to him as an artist, sure, but more than that, to the continent of Africa. But not what you know of Africa, the other side of Africa. Let's have some examples. Here's an introduction to the other side of a guy called Stogie T.
I put your certified hyenas in elephant graves. I'm punching way above the ceiling you set as the grade. This is the red letter day. Show them how a vet is made. Last time somebody skipped this file, David blamed. These ready-made superstars with tattoos and scars. And you think they can save face with a few bars? They lukewarm. I'm in true form. 38 like Jordan in Utah, killing them with the flu shot.
Listen, killing them with the flu shot. That line, the 38, Jordan in Utah killing them with the flu shot, that is an incredible line. But all that is you being introduced to who this Stogie T guy is. I am not these guys, I am these guys. Welcome to Africa. Check this out.
But if you taking stock and you don't save a spot for the forsaken lot, from the bacon heart, land of the slavers dark, that's your prerogative. We polar opposites. I'm from that continent of poverty and long walk accomplishments.
So of course, throughout this verse, there's a continuous theme of an introduction to the other side of T, the other side of the continent. But park that. When we talk of content, we talk of meat on the bones, but different people prefer different flavored meat. Some like it fried, some like it boiled, some like it. When you're an artist and you're presenting a message, you need to remember who you're presenting it to. There's three different audiences here. There's the core audience, the cats in South Africa, us, and the rest of the continent. That's one audience. Then there's the people in the US, Sway's audience, right? And then there's everybody else in between, the globe, the planet. The beauty about this verse is that it addresses all these audiences simultaneously. And he does this by referencing things that each of these markets can relate to in a way that ties them all in. All for what? All to bring out the content. So that's it. That's how you don't alienate your audience with content. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the mark of a true MC. So we've spoken about technique. We've spoken about content. The third and final thing I'm going to speak about with regards to this verse is significance. And what are we talking about when we say significance? We're talking about the grander context of the verse. A verse doesn't live in isolation. A verse lives in a space, in a context. So what can you learn significantly from any verse? I'll tell you three things. You learn about the artist who's spitting it. You get insight into who this person is. You learn about where they're from, the environment that this artist is coming from. And more subtly, you learn about the times and the era that this artist is living in. And those 3 points were poignant in this verse. I'll break it down for you like this. Remember earlier on when I spoke about technique, I spoke about form and structure. And we spoke about Trevor and we spoke about Nelson. I'm gonna go back into that verse again.
I say South Africa, you think Trevor, I think Nelson. It's half apparent you getting mixed messages. Hey, I say Nigeria, you think fella, I think Delta. It's past and present, blurry as an impressionist way.
Now, what's the significance of this? What does this tell you about the artist? Of course, it tells you he's from South Africa, we get that. But what is he really telling you? The mixed messages and apparent. Trevor is a product of a black parent and a white parent. He would be called so-called mixed. Nelson Mandela, Trevor, Noah, different eras, different artists. What messages are you getting of South Africa, and are they really mixed? Nelson is black. One of Trevor's parents is white. He's a parent, okay? But what is the real crux of this? What is he getting at? He's getting at fatherhood. Nelson Mandela is known as the father of the nation. Trevor Noah's entire campaign, his entire thing is about born a crime. It's about his mom and dad. He even goes on to talk about, when I say Nigeria, you think fella. When you think fella, what do you think? Apart from the African stuff, you think of the fact that he had multiple wives, yeah? So parenting and fatherhood are a big theme here. When you look at T himself as an artist, he's a dad. father of two, but he was raised by a single mom. He never really had like a father figure like that to look at as he was growing up. So of course the theme of fatherhood would come out strongly in the rhymes that he spits. But why is he bringing out fatherhood so much? It's because, again, like I said, this is a story about the other side and being introduced to the other side. We see the father, but tell us about the mom though. We see Mandela, but tell us about the other side. We see T, but tell us about the other side. He gives us a glimpse into his view on women in general when he talks about this theme of fatherhood. Later on in the verse, he says,
Leash my mama, hold her fist tight. Tell a bigot he can suck and lick a piss pipe.
He's talking about his mom, a South African struggle hero, the single parent that raised him. And then he goes on in the verse to talk about women and motherhood in a different way. Check this out.
For all the times we drove a shorty out to Mary Stopes and all the ones we almost broke, but still be calling hoes. They fall for men who end up teaching them the rope a dope. These the broken homes we from.
I told you this guy was introducing you to the other side of a story. And when you look at the significance of this verse, you get to know the guy, the artist, the African, the father, and the thinker. That's who. You get to know where he's from. Obviously, he's from Africa, but he's also from a single parent home. When? Right at the end of the verse, he says,
rest in peace, Pro Kid, rest in peace, Double HP, rest in peace, Relative Padella, rest in peace, Ben Sharper.
What is he saying? He's not just bigging up iconic hip hop cats, giants in SA and South Africa. He's putting the whole thing in a time capsule, as all verses do in their significance. He's letting you know when this is all happening. This is all happening at a dark time for fatherhood, a dark time for masculinity, a dark time for hip hop. It's 2018. And this when is what he brings out throughout this verse. And that's the third and most powerful layer of an incredible verse. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how you know it's a dope MC. So I just broken down to you a few things about this verse as an artist, just to present to you reasons as to why I think that Stogie T's verse on Sway has to be the best African freestyle of all time. You don't have to agree with me. That's what an aesthetic interpretation is. It's about your perspective. So I want to know what you think. Hit me up online, hit me on Twitter, put the comments under here, and tell me what you hear and tell me what you like about it. One thing you can't do is ignore it. Peace.